This is one of my favorite parts of the year. Learning about King Henry VIII and Macbeth pulls so many of the ideas we've discussed all year together into one fantastic unit. The idea of creation through destruction, as both the real-life King Henry and the fictitious Macbeth destroy their families and friendships in pursuit of creating this perfect power that neither man will ever really be able to obtain. The idea that the ends justify the means, as both men inflict countless instances of pain on their subjects while trying to make their countries greater for all those that live in them. The idea that even kings are men pursuing something unattainable, and that this pursuit may be more an act of predetermined destiny than an act of unchecked free will. And the idea that everyone pays for their sins, either by redeeming themselves or suffering the consequences. Now, normally, this is one of our most interactive units. We act, we get out into the hallways, we might even get out into the park. We have all kinds of cool costumes and crowds and things and swords. You don't have swords. I still have a sword. I keep it right next to my chair. And trust me, it's sharp. But look, we're going to have to make do with what we have. You with your no swords, me with my one sword. And honestly, I think we're going to be able to make it work. We're going to do some cool things over the next couple of weeks, but it requires your participation. You need to do all of your work and you need to show up for as many of our Zoom meetings as you can, particularly the ones where we're performing. Because yes, we're still going to act, even though we're locked in our living rooms, instead of our classroom, which is our own type of stage. So here's our schedule over the next couple of days. Today, in this video, I'm going to introduce you to Henry VIII. And in the next video you'll have to watch, you'll get an overview of his entire life. On Thursday, we'll meet in the Zoom meeting room at 10 a.m. And then we're going to watch some of Mr. Klasner's favorite TV show, The Tudors. On Friday, we'll introduce you to some of Henry VIII's advisors. And there were many of them, because when they disagreed with him, he tended to have them killed. On Monday, we're going to begin to lay the groundwork for our project, the trial of Henry VIII, where we're going to decide, was Henry England's greatest king or one of the world's greatest villains? So here are 5 things you need to know about Henry VIII.
Right, so you're a fucking virgin! That's not the point!
Henry was born in June of 1491. His father was King Henry VII, who had come over from France and defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field, thereby ending the War of the Roses and taking the crown of England for himself. For the first 11 years of Henry's life, he was not the heir to the throne. His older brother Arthur was. But when Arthur died suddenly in 1502 at the age of 15, Henry became the heir to the throne. He also had to marry his brother's Spanish wife to keep a strategic alliance with Spain alive.
No, not like this.
How?
Seduce me.
His brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon, was only his first wife. He was married 5 more times before he died. In fact, when he wanted to divorce Catherine and marry Anne Boleyn, the Pope wouldn't grant the divorce. Instead of staying with his wife, Henry left the Catholic Church and took all of England with him, creating the Church of England and the Anglican faith so that he could divorce his wife and marry his mistress.
Divorced, beheaded and died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. I'm Henry VIII, I had 6 sorry wives. Some might say I ruined their lives.
Henry may have loved England, but he loved money, power, and women more. Where his father was famously cheap, Henry spent lavishly, almost bankrupting England time and time again. Henry wasn't just obsessed with getting power, he was obsessed with keeping it. And anytime he felt someone could be a challenge, he had them taken care of. And he loved women. He was married 6 times and he had many, many other mistresses.
Tell me. In Leviticus, it says if a man marries his brother's wife, they will die childless. But you have a child, but not a son. I have no son.
Henry didn't just want to have power. He wanted to have all the power, and he wanted that power to last. But for that to happen, it meant he had to have a male heir to the throne. When Catherine of Aragon could only produce a daughter, Mary, he divorced her. When Anne Boleyn could only produce a daughter, Elizabeth, he had her beheaded. The third time was the charm for Henry, as Jane Seymour gave him his little Edward. But Jane Seymour died shortly after childbirth, leaving Henry with a male heir, but no wife. After Henry's death, Edward would die at a very young age, meaning the crown passed to his sister Mary. Mary also died without a child, so the crown passed to her sister Elizabeth. When Elizabeth died without an heir, it meant that the House of Tudor was coming to an end, after only 5 monarchs and a little over 100 years in power. Henry may have been one of the most powerful men in the world, but time catches up to all of us. When Henry became king, he was a young and athletic guy, kind of like Heller, and when he died, he was an old fat bastard, kind of like me. After years of injuries and illnesses, Henry died in January of 1547, at the age of 55.